established members than to pursue justice. Velmara rose from her throne. How did you obtain internal council communications? Those systems are protected by encryption that should be unbreakable. They are isolated from external networks. They are vulnerable, Marcus finished. Everything is vulnerable if you know where to look, and humans are very, very good at looking. A new voice entered the conversation. Perhaps too good. The luxury representative Shardmine Corvin materialized on his crystalline throne. He had not been absent after all. He had been watching invisibly. You have hacked our most secure systems. You have stolen classified information. You have violated a dozen council laws in gathering this evidence. Why should we not simply arrest you and quarantine Earth for these crimes? This was the moment Marcus had been preparing for since this mission began. Everything depended on what he said next. Because you already knew, Marcus said quietly. The chamber went silent. You already knew about the corruption, Marcus continued. Some of you, at least. The reform faction that Council Member Thex mentioned when he visited me 2 days ago. You knew the system was broken. You knew justice was being denied. But you did not have the political power to fix it, and you did not have evidence that could not be dismissed or buried. He looked directly at Velmara. So when a young, aggressive species started poking around in your databases, you could have stopped us. Your security systems detected our intrusions months ago, but you let us continue because you wanted someone else to force the confrontation you could not start yourselves. Velmara's wings vibrated, but she said nothing. Marcus pressed on. That is why you are not arresting me right now. That is why you gave us exactly 48 hours to prepare our case. You wanted to see if we would actually go through with it? If we would stand up in front of the entire council and accuse you of corruption. And now that we have, you have a choice. Admit the problems and fix them. Or try to suppress the evidence and prove that everything we said about you is true. You assume much human, Shardmind, Corvin said. His crystalline form pulsed with light. What makes you think we will not simply delete your evidence and continue as before? Because we already released it, Marcus said. 6 hours ago, every piece of evidence we showed you today was transmitted to independent news networks, academic institutions, and government archives across 300 systems. Thousands of beings are reviewing it right now. You cannot suppress it anymore. The galaxy knows what the Council really is. The chamber exploded into chaos again. This time, Velmara did not try to quiet it. She simply stared at Marcus with an expression he could not read. Finally, she spoke, her voice cutting through the noise. You have forced our hand. You have made it impossible for us to continue as we were. Do you understand what you have done? The Council maintains peace across thousands of worlds. If our authority is questioned, if species stop respecting our judgments, the entire structure of galactic civilization could collapse. Then maybe, Marcus said, it is time to build something better. Something based on actual justice instead of convenient lies. Something where all species are treated equally under the law, regardless of how long they have been members or how much power they have. Idealistic words, Luminanine said. But how do you propose to make such a system work? The Council exists because someone must arbitrate disputes. Someone must have final authority. How do you create equality while maintaining necessary hierarchy? Marcus allowed himself a small smile. We have some ideas about that. If you are willing to listen, Velmara settled back onto her throne. She looked at the other council members. Silent communication passed between them, too fast and complex for Marcus to follow. Then she looked back at him. Very well, Representative Webb. You have our attention. You have forced us to acknowledge problems we have long ignored. Now show us that you have solutions, as well as accusations. The Council will hear Earth's proposal for reform. This was what he had been working toward. The moment when the Council would actually listen, instead of simply dictating terms. Thank you, High Arbiter. Earth's proposal is based on a simple principle. The rule of law must apply equally to all, and justice must be transparent. We propose the following reforms. Marcus began outlining the plan that human legal experts and diplomatic theorists had spent months developing. He could see reactions spreading through the chamber. Some species looked interested. Others looked skeptical. A few looked hostile. But they were all listening. That was enough. For now, that was enough. Outside the chamber, news of the confrontation was spreading across the galaxy. Species that had suffered under the old system were watching hopefully. Established powers were watching nervously. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, other humans watched and waited, ready to support their representative if words failed and force became necessary. But Marcus believed it would not come to that. He believed the council could be reformed because he had seen the uncertainty in Velmara's eyes. She knew the system was broken. She just needed someone to show her how to fix it without destroying everything she had worked to build. Earth would show her. And if the council refused to listen, Earth would show the entire galaxy what happened when you pushed humans too far. The debate lasted for 6 hours. Marcus presented Earth's proposal for restructuring the council into a more democratic institution with constitutional protections for all member species. The proposal included independent tribunals to investigate complaints, public records of council decisions, and term limits for high council positions. The reactions ranged from enthusiastic support to outright hostility. Several smaller species voiced immediate approval, seeing the reforms as their best chance for fair treatment. Established council members were more divided. Some, like Thex, cautiously supported the ideas. Others saw them as an attack on the stability that had maintained galactic peace for millennia. The real opposition came from council member Drax, representative of the Kuralathi Empire. His species controlled the largest military fleet outside the council's direct command, and they had benefited enormously from the current system's favoritism toward powerful members. These reforms would paralyze the council. Drax declared, his multiple voice boxes creating an echoing effect. Every decision would be questioned. Every judgment would be delayed by investigations and appeals. Small species would abuse the system to drag out disputes indefinitely. The galaxy would descend into chaos. Or Marcus countered, it would create actual accountability. Right now, the council can make decisions based on political convenience rather than justice. Species either accept your rulings or face isolation and sanctions. That is not law. That is coercion. It is order, Drax shot back, which you, in your arrogance, seek to destroy. Velmara raised a claw for silence. Enough. Representative Webb, your proposals have merit, but Council Member Drax raises valid concerns. How do you address the practical problems of implementing such dramatic changes? Marcus had anticipated this question. A transition period. 5 years to implement the new structures while maintaining current council authority. During that time, the new tribunals would be established and tested. Constitutional frameworks would be drafted with input from all member species. Training programs would ensure everyone understands the new systems. At the end of 5 years, we evaluate the results and make adjustments as needed. And what happens? Shardmine Corvin asked, if some species refuse to participate in these reforms? If established members decide they prefer the current system, then they will be making a choice, Marcus said. A choice between being part of a just system or being part of a corrupt one. And every other species in the galaxy will see that choice clearly. You speak of choices as if we are equals, Drax said. But we are not. My species commands 2,000 warships. Yours has barely 100. If it comes to conflict, Earth will burn. The chamber went very quiet. This was the threat Marcus had been waiting for. The moment when the old guard showed its true nature. Is that an official council position? Marcus asked calmly. Are you threatening to destroy Earth if we continue pushing for reforms? Drax's multiple eyes fixed on him. I am stating reality. You are one world. We are thousands. You cannot force us to change. You're right, Marcus said. We are one world. But do you know what else we are? He did not wait for an answer. Instead, he activated a new sequence on his data crystal. Images appeared showing Earth's moon. But the images were strange, showing the lunar surface from angles and perspectives that should not exist. For the past 3 years, Marcus explained, human scientists have been conducting archaeological surveys of our solar system. We found something interesting on our moon. structures buried deep beneath the surface. Technology that does not match anything in the Council's databases. Technology that predates your civilization by thousands of years. The image is shifted, showing massive installations hidden in lunar caverns. Weapon systems. Power generators. Computing networks. All of it ancient beyond measure. All of it still functional. We call them the Maker installations, Marcus continued. We do not know who built them or why they are on our moon. But we have spent 3 years figuring out how they work. And in the past 6 months, The doors to the Grand Terminus Hall opened with a sound like thunder. Marcus Webb stepped through them and stopped, taking in the sight before him. He had seen pictures, studied recordings, and reviewed every bit of information Earth's diplomats could gather about this place. None of it prepared him for the reality. The chamber stretched upward for what seemed like miles. Crystalline walls caught and refracted light from sources Marcus could not identify, creating patterns that hurt to look at directly. Floating platforms held representatives from species Marcus recognized and dozens he did not. Some sat in chairs made of living metal. Others floated in spheres of liquid or energy. A few existed as patterns of light that moved and shifted in ways that suggested intelligence without form. At the center of it all, 7 massive thrones rose above the rest. These were the seats of the High Council, the beings who governed the fates of 3,000 worlds and controlled the flow of trade, technology, and power across half the galaxy. Marcus had exactly one chance to convince them that Earth deserved to exist as a free world. He walked forward. Each step echoed in the vast chamber. Hundreds of alien eyes, sensors, and perception organs focused on him. Marcus felt the weight of their attention like a physical thing pressing down on his shoulders. He did not let it show on his face. High Arbiter Velmara rose from her throne. She was massive, easily 4 times Marcus's height. With a body covered in dark blue carapace and wings that spread wide enough to cast shadows over a dozen of the smaller platforms. Her compound eyes reflected the chamber's light in fragments of rainbow color. "Human," she said, and her voice carried easily across the enormous space. "You stand accused of violating the Sacred Heritage Act? Your colony on Avelnine destroyed a protected monument of the Tirani people. This act shows contempt for galactic law and disrespect for cultures older than your civilization. How do you answer?" Marcus looked up at her without flinching. "I answer that we are innocent of this charge." A ripple of movement went through the assembled representatives. Some leaned forward, others made sounds that Marcus's translator rendered as surprise or disbelief. No one simply denied charges before the council. That was not how this worked. Species brought before this chamber either accepted their punishment or offered excuses and begged for mercy. Velmara's wings vibrated with what Marcus recognized from his briefings as irritation. "You deny the evidence? We have sensor recordings. We have testimony from Tirani observers. We have verification from 3 independent security systems. The monument was destroyed by human mining equipment. Your colony administrator's signature appears on the work orders." "I do not deny that the monument was destroyed," Marcus said calmly. "I deny that we did it." Another council member leaned forward. This one appeared to be made of liquid crystal, its form constantly flowing and reforming. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes. "Explain this distinction, human." Marcus reached into his jacket. Immediately, a dozen weapons appeared from hidden alcoves in the walls, all pointed at him. Energy weapons, projectile systems, and things Marcus could not identify all tracked his movement. He moved slowly, carefully, and pulled out a small data crystal. "May I present evidence?" Velmara gestured, and one of the weapons fired. Marcus did not flinch as the beam struck the crystal in his hand. Instead of destroying it, the beam scanned it and projected its contents into the air above the chamber floor. Images appeared, floating and rotating so everyone could see. "This is a recording from our colony's security network," Marcus explained. "It shows the monument 3 days before it was destroyed. Now watch carefully." He advanced the recording. "Here at timestamp 1447 Galactic Standard, You can see 3 individuals approaching the monument. They are wearing Tirani environmental suits, but notice the gait pattern. My analyst noticed something odd. He enhanced the image. The 3 figures moved with a peculiar rhythm, their steps not quite matching what Tirani physiology would produce. We ran biomechanical analysis. These are not Tirani. They are humans wearing Tirani suits. The chamber erupted in noise. Belmera slammed one massive claw against her throne's armrest. The sound silenced everyone. You claim members of your own species destroyed the monument and framed your colony? Her voice dripped with disbelief. Why would they do this? They would not, Marcus said. Because they were not our people. They were hired actors, trained to move like humans, wearing synthetic skin to mimic our appearance. The Tirani hired them. Ow. The chamber exploded into chaos. The Tirani representative, a being named Council Member Thex, rose from his platform. This is outrageous. You accuse us of fabricating evidence against you? Marcus met his multifaceted gaze. I do, and I can prove it. He activated another sequence on the data crystal. This is a financial record from a shell corporation registered in the Outer Fringe territories. See this payment, made 6 weeks before the incident? It went to a theatrical company specializing in mimicry and impersonation, cross-reference, the timing with transport logs, and you will find that company sent a team to Avel-9 exactly 8 days before the monument's destruction. And who, Dex demanded, his voice sharp with anger, funded this shell corporation? Marcus smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. A Tirani noble house. The same house that controls the mining rights to the region surrounding that monument. The same house that has been trying to acquire our colony's mining claims for the past 2 years? The same house that would benefit enormously if we were forced to abandon Avelni and sell our operations at penalty prices? The chamber fell silent. Velmara stared down at Marcus with an expression he could not read. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, almost dangerous. You come before this council with serious accusations. You claim that a respected member species has framed you for a crime. Do you understand what you are saying? I understand perfectly, Marcus replied. And I have more evidence if you wish to see it. Transaction records, communication intercepts. Even confessions from 2 of the actors involved who grew concerned. When they learned their performance would be used to justify sanctions against an entire human colony, Velmera leaned back in her throne. She looked at Dex, who had gone very still on his platform. She looked at the other council members. Then she looked back at Marcus. Why, she asked, slowly, should we believe you? You are a young species. You have been part of the galactic community for barely a generation. The Tirani have been council members for 8,000 years. Their reputation is well established. Marcus took a breath. This was the moment. Everything depended on what he said next. Because we knew this would happen, he said. We knew the Tirani would try something like this eventually. So for the past year, we have been watching, learning, recording, and what we found. He paused. What we found is that this is not the first time the Council has ignored evidence to support favored members over newer species. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Elmera's wings spread wide. Explain yourself, human. Marcus activated the final sequence on his data crystal. New images appeared, dozens of them, showing incident reports, tribunal records, and judgment documentation from across the past 300 years. 17 times, Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly in the silent chamber. 17 times in the past 3 centuries, species newer to the Council have brought evidence of wrongdoing by established members. 17 times, that evidence was dismissed or ignored. 17 times, the newer species accepted punishment for crimes they did not commit, because fighting the Council was impossible. He looked up at Velmara, and his expression was hard. We are not those species. We did not come here to beg for mercy or to accept unjust punishment. We came here to prove our innocence and to put the Council itself on notice. Earth will not be intimidated, will not be cheated, and we will not be silent when we see injustice. The chamber remained absolutely still. Every being present understood they had just witnessed something unprecedented. A species barely a century into space, Travel had just challenged the most powerful governing body in the known galaxy. Velmera's voice was very soft when she finally spoke. You are either very brave or very foolish. Human. Perhaps both. This council will review your evidence. We will investigate these claims. But understand this. She leaned forward, and her massive form seemed to fill the entire chamber. If you are wrong, if you have wasted our time, or falsely accused a member species, the consequences for Earth will be severe. Marcus did not look away. And if we are right, what then? For the first time since the session began, Velmera seemed uncertain. That hesitation told Marcus everything he needed to know. The council had never considered what would happen if someone successfully challenged them. The High Arbiter straightened. This session is suspended. We will reconvene in 48 hours with our findings. Until then, Representative Webb, you are confined to the diplomatic quarter. Dismissed. As Marcus turned to leave, he heard whispers starting among the assembled species. Some sounded shocked. Others sounded impressed. A few sounded afraid. Marcus kept his expression neutral as he walked back toward those massive doors. But inside, he allowed himself a small moment of satisfaction. Phase 1 was complete. Earth had just announced to the galaxy thaw. Humanity would not be pushed around. Now came the hard part, making sure they could back up that announcement when the council inevitably pushed back. The doors closed behind him with that same thunder sound. In the chamber he left behind, the real debate was just beginning. Marcus sat in the waiting chamber assigned to him, reviewing data on a holographic display. The room was comfortable enough with furniture adapted for human physiology and a window showing a view of the station's exterior. Ships from 100 different species docked and departed in a carefully choreographed dance of interstellar commerce. Somewhere out there, human ships waited, ready to evacuate him if things went wrong. He hoped it would not come to that. The door chimed. Marcus dismissed the display and stood as it opened. The visitor surprised him. Council member Thex entered, his segmented body moving with the precise control of a creature evolved in high gravity. Behind him came two guards, but Dex waved them back. They remained by the door as the Tyranny representative approached Marcus. We need to talk, Dex said without preamble. Privately, Marcus gestured to the sitting area. Both of them settled into chairs designed for their respective anatomies. For a long moment neither spoke. Then Dex made a sound that Marcus's translator rendered as a sigh. You were right, the Tyranny said quietly. About the noble house, about the hired actors, about all of it. Marcus kept his expression neutral. And I knew nothing about it, Thex continued. I am not involved in the politics of noble houses, and my role on the council is to represent my species' interests, not to advance the schemes of wealthy families. But now I am implicated because I defended them without knowing the truth. Why are you telling me this? Vex's compound eyes reflected the room's light in fragmented patterns. Because you need to understand something about the council. What you did today, challenging us publicly with evidence of corruption that was dangerous in ways you cannot imagine. The council maintains order across thousands of worlds. We prevent wars, manage disputes, and keep the trade routes flowing. We do this through a careful balance of power and reputation. Reputation built on ignoring crimes by favored members, Marcus asked. Reputation built on stability, Dex corrected. When newer species see that established members are trusted and supported, it encourages them to seek that same status. It creates incentive to follow council law, to integrate into our systems, to become reliable partners. Marcus leaned forward. At the cost of justice? At the cost of small injustices to prevent larger conflicts, Thex said. Do you know how many species would go to war if they thought they could get away with it? How many territorial disputes are barely contained by council authority? The system is not perfect, but it works. Until it does not, Marcus said. Till someone like us comes along with enough evidence to make ignoring the problem impossible. Dex made another sound, this one rendered as bitter amusement. Yes, until someone like you. Ali. Which brings me to why I am really here. He leaned closer. There are factions within the council. Some believe in genuine reform. Others believe in maintaining the current system at any cost. By challenging us so publicly, you have forced a confrontation between these factions. That confrontation could tear the council apart. Maybe it should be torn apart, Marcus said. And what would replace it? X demanded. Chaos. 1,000 independent species, all pursuing their own interests with no oversight. Do you know how? Many wars would erupt within a year. How many worlds would burn? Marcus stood and walked to the window. He looked out at the ships moving in their orderly patterns. You are asking me to back down? To accept some lesser punishment to avoid destabilizing the council? I am asking you to think beyond this moment, Dex said. Yes, my people wronged yours. Yes, the council has ignored injustices. But if you push too hard, if you destroy the only institution keeping the peace, the consequences will be worse than any individual crime. Marcus turned back to face him. What if there is another option? What if we could reform the council without destroying it? Dex went very still. Explain. Humans have experience with this, Marcus said. Our own governments have gone through similar transitions. Systems built on power and favoritism reformed into systems built on law and equality. It was not easy. It was never perfect. But it was possible. The council is not a planetary government, Dex said. We govern species so different from each other that we barely understand each other's thinking. How do you create equality when one species breathes methane in another? Exists as energy patterns. When one measures time in minutes and another in centuries? Marcus smiled. The same way you created the council in the first place. You found common ground, common interests, common rules that everyone could agree to follow. You just forgot to include justice as one of those common rules. And you think you can convince the council to add it now? I think I have no choice but to try, Marcus said. Because the alternative is to go home and tell my people that justice does not matter in the galaxy. That we should expect to be cheated and abused because we are new and weak. Do you know what humans do when they believe the system is rigged against them? What? Dex asked. We change the system. Or we burn it down and build a new one. Dex was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood. You're a dangerous species, Marcus Webb. Dangerous not because you are violent, because you believe things can be better. That kind of belief is infectious. Is that a bad thing? I do not know yet, Dex admitted. But I will think about what you said. I will speak to others on the council who might be willing to listen. No promises, is all I ask. Dex moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. Said you found evidence of 17 similar cases. How did you access those records? Some of them are classified at levels that should be impossible for a species at your technological development to breach. Marcus met his gaze steadily. We are good at finding information people want to keep hidden. It is a survival skill we developed before we even left our planet. That is not an answer. It is the only answer you will get today, Marcus said. But here is something to consider. If we could find those 17 cases, what else do you think we might have found? Dex stared at him. Then he made a sound that the translator could not interpret and left. The guards followed him out, and Marcus was alone again. He returned to his holographic display and opened a secure channel. Admiral Kira Vance appeared, her image transmitted from the human fleet waiting in the outer system. How did the session go? She asked. Better than expected, Marcus said. Dix just visited me. I think we might have an ally, or at least someone willing to consider reforms. Or he is gathering intelligence on what we know, Kira said. Do not trust them too quickly. I do not trust any of them, Marcus said. But I think some of them are genuinely concerned about what happens if the council collapses. We can work with that. What about the others? The ones who want to maintain the system no matter what? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Those are the ones we need to be ready for. Have the backup plans been implemented? Everything is in place, Kira confirmed. If they try to hold you or attack Earth, we are ready to respond, though I hope it does not come to that. So do I, Marcus said. But hope is not a strategy. Make sure everyone is prepared. The next 48 hours will determine. Whether we get reforms or whether we have to show them why threatening Earth is a mistake, understood, Vance out. The connection closed. Marcus stood alone in the diplomatic chamber, looking out at the galaxy that was about to change whether it wanted to or not. Somewhere in the council chambers, debates were happening. Factions were forming. Decisions were being made that would affect billions of beings. And somewhere in those chambers, people were accessing the classified records Marcus had mentioned. They would be trying to figure out how humans had breached their security. They would be searching for what else might have been accessed. Marcus smiled to himself. Let them search. Let them wonder. Because the truth was going to shake the Council far more than any threat of violence ever could. And when they learned what humans had really found in those classified databases, the choice would be simple. Reform or face a galaxy that knew the truth about what the Council really was. The countdown had begun. In 48 hours, everything would change. Marcus just had to make sure it changed in a direction that Earth could live with, outside the window. Another ship departed into the darkness between stars. Marcus watched. He'd go and thought about all the species out there who had been waiting for someone to stand up to the Council. They would be watching what happened next. Some would be hoping humans succeeded. Others would be hoping humans failed and learned the same hard lessons everyone else had learned. But none of them knew what humans had really discovered. None of them knew the real reason Marcus was so confident. And by the time they found out, it would be too late for anyone to stop what was coming. The Council reconvened exactly 48 hours later. Marcus entered the Grand Terminus Hall again, but this time the atmosphere was different. The chamber felt charged with tension, like air before a lightning strike. More platforms were occupied than before. Word had spread, and species that normally sent only minor observers now had full delegations present. Velmara S. had on her throne, but 5 of the other 6 High Council members were also present now. Only one seat remained empty, the crystalline throne of the Luxari representative. Marcus made note of the absence but did not comment. Representative Webb Velmara began, her voice formal and cold. The Council has reviewed your evidence regarding the incident on Avelnut. We have conducted our own investigation. We have questioned witnesses and examined financial records. We have verified the information you provided. She paused. And Marcus could feel every being in the chamber holding whatever they used for breath. Your accusations against the Tirani noble house are proven correct. They did indeed orchestrate the destruction of the monument, and attempted to frame your colony for their own financial benefit. For this crime, the noble house in question will face sanctions and criminal prosecution under Tirani law. Your colony on Avelnine is cleared of all charges. A wave of sound moved through the chamber. Some of it sounded like approval. Much of it sounded like shock. Marcus remained still, waiting. This was not the end. This was barely the beginning. However, Velmara continued, and her voice grew harder. You also made accusations against this council itself. You claimed that we have systematically ignored evidence and favored established members over newer species. These are serious charges that strike at the foundation of galactic order. What evidence do you provide to support these claims? Marcus had been waiting for this question. I provided a list of 17 cases. Would the council like me to review them in detail? That will not be necessary, said another council member. A being of pure energy that called itself Luminanine. We have reviewed the cases you cited. In each instance, the council acted on the best available information. Mistakes may have been made, but there was no systematic bias. Then you will not mind if I share additional context, Marcus said calmly. He activated his data crystal again. New images appeared in the air. Case 14 on my list. The Vorath incident. A mining dispute where a newer species claimed an established member had stolen their survey data. The council ruled in favor of the established member based on testimony from council-certified auditors. The images showed the official records. Then they showed something else. Financial transfers. Communication logs. Evidence that the auditors had been bribed. This evidence was available at the time, Marcus said. It was submitted by the Vorath. It was dismissed without investigation because, and I quote from the council's own internal memos, extensive investigation of a valued member species over the word of a recently integrated civilization would set an undesirable precedent. The chamber erupted. Species shouted in their various languages. Some demanded to see the internal memos. Others claimed the documents must be forgeries. Marcus waited for the noise to die down before continuing. Would you like me to review the other 16 cases in similar detail? Because I can. I have the internal council communications for all of them. I have the evidence that was dismissed. I have the memos discussing why it was more convenient to side with, have activated them. More images appeared. Earth's moon, its surface reconfiguring as hidden systems came online. Energy readings that made several council members gasp. Weapon signatures that matched nothing in known galactic arsenals. So when you threaten to burn Earth, Marcus said, looking directly at Drax, you should know that Earth can defend itself. Those 2,000 warships you mentioned? Our analysis suggests they would last approximately 7 minutes against full activation of the lunar defense grid. Drax surged to his feet. This is a bluff. If you had such weapons, you would have revealed them before now. Would we? Marcus asked. What would be the point? We do not want to rule the galaxy through force. We do not want to threaten anyone. We activated the systems only after your species began running military exercises in our sector last month. Exercises that looked suspiciously like preparations for an invasion. You let that sink in before continuing. We do not want war, Council Member Drax, but we will not be intimidated either. Earth is offering the Council a chance to evolve peacefully, to become something better than it is. If you reject that offer, if you choose to maintain the corrupt system through threats of violence, then you force us to demonstrate that we cannot be bullied. Velmara's voice cut through the tension. You claim these installations are of unknown origin, that you simply found them and activated them. Do you expect us to believe this? I do not care if you believe it, Marcus said. I care that you understand the situation. Earth is not weak. We are not helpless. And we are not going away. You can work with us to build a better council. Or you can fight us and learn exactly what the Makers built into our solar system's defenses. But you cannot ignore us anymore. Silence fell over the chamber. Every being present understood they had just witnessed a fundamental shift in galactic power dynamics. A species barely a century into space, travel had just revealed they possessed weapons that predated the Council itself. Luminanine spoke, its energy form flickering with what might have been concern. If what you say is true, if these Maker installations are as powerful as you claim, then you could threaten the entire galaxy. How do we know you will not use them for conquest once you have secured your position? Marcus turned to face the energy being, because that is not who we are. Humans could have kept the Maker's technology secret. We could have used it to seize power, or to take revenge on species that have wronged us. Instead, we are telling you about it. We are showing you the evidence. We are offering partnership instead of domination. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes and sensors of beings from dozens of species. But partnership requires trust on both sides. You need to trust that we will not abuse this power. And we need to trust that you will give us a fair voice in council decisions. That starts with reforms that ensure justice for all species, not just the powerful ones. Velmara was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice thoughtful. You have given us much to consider, Representative Webb. Too much to decide in a single session. The Council will adjourn to discuss these revelations and your proposals. We will reconvene tomorrow to give our response. Tomorrow might be too late, Marcus said quietly. What do you mean? I mean that news of this session is already spreading. Species across the galaxy are learning about the corruption evidence. They are learning about Earth's proposal for reforms, and they are learning about the Maker's installations. How long do you think it will be before someone decides to test whether those installations are real? How long before a desperate species or a power-hungry empire decides to strike at Earth while they think they still have a chance? The implications of his words rippled through the chamber. If Earth really did have access to ancient superweapons, every ambitious species in the galaxy would see them as either a threat to be eliminated or a prize to be seized. What are you suggesting? Velmara asked. I am suggesting, Marcus said, that the Council make a decision now. Accept Earth's partnership and the proposed reforms, or reject them, and accept that the galaxy is about to become a much more dangerous place. Because if this Council cannot provide security and justice, then Earth will find other allies. We will build a new coalition based on the principles we have outlined. And that coalition will not ask for the Council's permission. It was an ultimatum, not delivered with threats of violence, but with the calm certainty of someone who knew they held stronger cards than anyone had suspected. Velmara looked at the other council members. More of that silent communication passed between them. Then she turned back to Marcus. Very well. The High Council will vote immediately on whether to enter formal negotiations with Earth regarding governmental reforms. All in favor? 3 council members raised appendages or glowed with affirmative signals. 3 opposed. 1, Shardmine Corvin, abstained. The chamber held its breath. Velmara's wings spread wide. As High Arbiter, I cast the deciding vote in favor of negotiations. Earth's proposals will be considered seriously and in good faith. Formal discussions will begin immediately. The chamber erupted. Some species celebrated. Others protested. Drax stormed out, his delegation following. But Marcus simply nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. They had done it. They had forced the most powerful institution in the galaxy to accept change. Now came the harder part. Making sure that change actually happened. The formal negotiations began the next day in a smaller chamber designed for working sessions rather than grand pronouncements. Marcus sat across a table from Velmara, Dex, Luminanine, and 3 other council members who had voted for reform. Shardmine Corvin attended as an observer, his crystalline form shifting slowly as he processed the discussions. The first hour was tense. Council members questioned every aspect of Earth's proposals. How would tribunals be structured? Who would have authority to investigate sitting council members? What would prevent smaller species from filing endless frivolous complaints? Marcus answered each question with patience and detail. Humans had spent months preparing for this. They had studied governmental systems from dozens of civilizations. They had consulted with legal experts from species that had undergone similar transitions. They had solutions, not just criticisms. By the 3rd hour, something shifted. The Styans became less hostile and more genuinely curious. Council members began contributing ideas instead of just raising objections. Vex suggested a rotating tribunal system where judges came from different species on fixed terms. Luminanine proposed a public database where all council decisions and supporting evidence would be recorded for review. Velmara watched this process with an expression Marcus was learning to read. She was not happy about being forced into these negotiations, but she recognized their necessity. More importantly, she was beginning to see possibilities. There is something we need to discuss, she said during a break in the technical debates. These maker installations on your moon? You claim not to know their origin or purpose. But surely you have theories. Marcus had been expecting this conversation. We do. Our archaeologists believe the makers were an ancient civilization that built the hyperlane network, and many other structures throughout the galaxy. They disappeared roughly 5,000 years ago. We do not know why or where they went. And you just happened to find their weapons hidden on your moon. Velmara's skepticism was evident. We found evidence of them throughout our solar system, Marcus corrected. The moon installations were just the most intact. There are ruins on Mars, in the asteroid belt, even in our outer planets. Whoever the makers were, they spent significant time in our system. Shardmine Corvin spoke for the first time in hours. I have been reviewing your archaeological data. I noticed something interesting. The maker installations in your system all share a common design language with structures found on 17 other worlds. Worlds that are now council members. Worlds where similar ancient ruins exist but were never successfully activated. Marcus met his crystalline gaze. Are you suggesting something? I am suggesting, Corvin said slowly, that perhaps the makers did not simply disappear. Perhaps they were removed by an organization that did not want anyone accessing their technology. The implication hung in the air like a physical thing. Velmara's wings went very still. Vex made a sound of distress. Luminanine's form flickered rapidly. Are you accusing the Council of genocide? Velmara asked quietly. I am saying, Corvin replied, that there are gaps in our historical records. 3,000 years ago, the Council underwent a major reorganization. Many records from that period are sealed in what you call the Black Archives, records that even most Council members cannot access. Perhaps it is time to open those archives and see what our predecessors did not want us to know. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. This was moving faster than he had anticipated. The Council was starting to investigate its own history. If they found what he suspected they would find, everything would change. Velmara stood abruptly. This session is adjourned. I need to consult with the full Council about opening the Black Archives. Representative Webb, you will remain in the diplomatic quarters until we reconvene. As the Council members filed out, Vex paused beside Marcus. You knew about this already? Did not you? About the Makers and the Council's possible involvement in their disappearance? Marcus met his compound eyes. We had suspicions, but we needed you to discover it yourselves. If we had simply accused you, you would have dismissed it as human propaganda. This way, you ask the questions. You seek the truth, Clever Vex said, and dangerous. If the Black Archives contain what I think they might, it could destroy what little remains of the Council's credibility. Or, Marcus suggested, it could be the foundation for something new. A council that acknowledges its past mistakes and commits to never repeating them. A government that earns trust through transparency instead of demanding obedience through power. Vex was quiet for a moment. Then he made that sound his translator rendered as a sigh. I hope you are right, Marcus Webb, because if you are wrong, the next few days will determine whether this galaxy descends into chaos. After he left, Marcus returned to his quarters and opened a secure channel to Admiral Vance. Status? She asked. Better than expected, Marcus reported. The Council is opening their sealed historical archives. They are starting to ask questions about the Makers. Give it 24 hours and they will know the truth. And when they do, then we offer them the choice again. Work with us to build something better, or watch their authority collapse as species learn what the Council really did to maintain power. Vance was quiet for a moment. You are playing a dangerous game, Marcus. If they decide the truth is too threatening, they might choose to eliminate the evidence, including you. They could try, Marcus said. But I am not the only one who knows. The information is distributed across too many systems now. Killing me would just make humans angry. And nobody wants to see what angry humans with maker weapons would do. Just be careful, Vance said. We are not invincible, no matter what you told the Council about those lunar installations. Marcus smiled. They do not need to know that. They just need to believe it long enough for us to make this work. The next day, Velmara summoned Marcus to a private meeting. No other Council members. No recorders. Just the two of them in a small observation room, overlooking the station's main concourse. We opened the Black Archives, she said without preamble. You were right. All of it. The Makers existed. They built the infrastructure we use. And 3,000 years ago, a Council predecessor organization destroyed them. Why? Marcus asked, though he already knew. Because they refused to share their technology. Because they saw what the Council was becoming and tried to leave, take their knowledge with them. The Council could not allow that. So they hunted the Makers across the galaxy and eliminated them. Every last one. Velmara's wings drooped, a sign of deep distress. We built our civilization on genocide and theft. We created laws to govern the galaxy while hiding the greatest crime in history. And now you have forced us to confront this truth. Not to destroy you, Marcus said gently. To give you a chance to be better. The Council of 3,000 years ago made terrible choices. But you are not them. You can choose differently, can I? Velmara turned to face him fully. You asked me a question when we first met in that chamber? You asked why you should believe the Council would treat Earth fairly? Now I ask you, why are you not afraid? You stand before powers that destroyed a civilization more advanced than yours. Powers that could do the same to Earth. Why are you not afraid? Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking about the question that would give this moment meaning. Then he spoke. Because fear is what you feel when you think you cannot change the outcome. When you are helpless, but we are not helpless. We found the Makers' installations. We broke your encryption. We uncovered your secrets. We forced you to face truths you wanted to keep buried. We did all of that because we refused to be afraid of institutions that claim authority without earning it. He stepped closer to Velmara. But there is something else. Something you need to understand about humans. We have seen what we become when we are truly afraid. When our survival is genuinely threatened. We have historical records of what we did to each other when we thought resources were scarce. We thought other groups threatened our existence. We were terrible, cruel, capable of atrocities that still haunt us. And, Velmara prompted, and we do not want to be that again. Ever. So we built systems to prevent it. Laws, rights, limitations on power. We learned painfully and slowly that the only way to avoid becoming monsters is to create structures that protect everyone, even from ourselves. That is what we are offering you. Not weakness. Not naivete. The hard-won wisdom of a species that looked into the abyss and chose to step back. He met her compound eyes steadily. So no, I am not afraid of you. Because if you make me afraid, if you threaten Earth's survival, we will respond with everything we have. And neither of us wants to see what that looks like. I am offering you friendship instead. Partnership. A chance to avoid the mistakes we made and the ones your predecessors made. Velmara was silent for a long time. Then she made a sound Marcus's translator rendered as sad laughter. You are a strange species, Marcus Webb. You break into our most secure systems, threaten our power structure, force us to confront our worst crimes, and then offer us friendship. Is that a yes? Marcus asked. It is an acknowledgement, Velmara said. An acknowledgement that Earth has changed the galaxy whether we wanted it or not. The question now is whether that change leads to something better or something worse.
Oh.
She turned back to the window. I will support your reforms. I will push the Council to accept them. Not because you threatened us or because you have ancient weapons, but because you are right. The system is broken. It has been broken since the beginning. And if we do not fix it, eventually some species will do to us what we did to the Makers. Thank you, Marcus said simply. Do not thank me yet, Velmara warned. There will be resistance. Species like the Kuralathi will not give up power easily. It could take decades to fully implement these reforms. There will be setbacks and compromises, Marcus said. But it is a start. And humans are very good at being patient when we know we are moving in the right direction. Over the following months, the Council began its transformation. The Black archives were opened to scholarly review. Tribunals were established to investigate historical claims. Constitutional committees formed to draft frameworks for governance. Not every species participated willingly. Some, like the Kuralathi, withdrew from council participation entirely. But others, species that had suffered under the old system, joined eagerly. Earth became the symbol of this new era. The species that had refused to accept injustice. The civilization that had forced change through a combination of intelligence, courage, and moral clarity. But Marcus knew the real test would come later. When the initial enthusiasm faded, when the hard work of implementation began, when species disagreed about what justice meant or how power should be distributed, that was when humanity's real contribution would matter. Not the maker weapons or the hacking skills or the dramatic confrontations, but the patient, persistent work of building systems that protected everyone. The willingness to compromise on methods while remaining firm on principles. The understanding that civilization was not a destination, but an ongoing process of improvement. In his final report to Earth's government, Marcus wrote, "We did not change the galaxy because we were stronger or smarter than everyone else. We changed it because we refused to accept that things had to stay the way they were. Because we remembered what our own history taught us about the cost of systems built on power instead of justice. And because we were willing to risk everything to prove that better was possible, the galaxy is watching us now. Watching to see if we can maintain these principles as we gain more influence. Watching to see if we become what we fought against. Our greatest challenge is not defeating the Council. It is making sure we never become the Council." Years later, when the first reformed Galactic Federation held its opening session, Velmara and Marcus stood together watching the proceedings. Hundreds of species, all with equal votes. Constitutional protections. Transparent processes. It was not perfect, but it was better. Do you ever regret it? Velmara asked. Forcing us to change? Some species still blame Earth for the instability during the transition. Marcus shook his head. Stability built on injustice is not worth preserving. Better a difficult transition to something fair than comfortable acceptance of something wrong, Velmara said, is why I am no longer afraid of you. Not because you lack weapons or power, but because you use them in service of something larger than yourselves. Though I admit, I am curious. The Maker installations on your moon. You never did fully explain how you activated them. Marcus smiled. Some secrets are worth keeping, at least for now. Velmara made that sound, his translator now rendered as amused acceptance. Perhaps that is wise. A galaxy without mysteries would be boring. Together, they watched as the new Federation began its first session. Out there in the darkness between stars, thousands of species were beginning a new chapter. One where power came from consent, not coercion. Where justice was transparent, not convenient. Where even the newest species could stand equal with the oldest. It would not be easy. There would be failures and setbacks. But humanity had proven that change was possible. That standing up to entrenched power could succeed. That fear was not destiny, and across the galaxy. On worlds that had suffered in silence under the old council, beings looked up at the stars with new hope. Because if humans could force change, maybe anyone could. Maybe the galaxy really could become something better. That hope, more than any weapon or technology, was Earth's true gift to the stars. Two halves retriclod can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Sonnet 4.5